Earlier this week, Lebo and Tumi Sedumedi caught up with Eve Ensler from the Vagina Monologues at the UJ Art Center, and this is how the conversation went.
In 2010, she was named one of 125 women who changed our world by Good Housekeeping magazine. That is, of course, a Tony Award-winning playwright and performer, and of course, international best-selling author Eve Ensler, whose works include The Vagina Monologues, which has been translated into 48 languages in over 140 countries.
Right now, the woman who is a reminder to all women and girls in the world that we all deserve to be heard is in the country to show off two works. One is a stage production titled Emotional Creature, and her new book, In the Body of the World. Eve Ensler, welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with both of you.
Please take us back to that light bulb moment that was the Vagina Monologues. How did you come to that?
Well, sometimes I think it came to me. You know, I was actually talking to a friend who was an older woman, a feminist, a forward-thinking woman, and she was talking to me about menopause. And we got onto the subject of her vagina, which you'll do if you're talking about menopause. And she just started saying things about her vagina that were really disturbing, that it was old and dried up and finished and ugly, and I was like, wow. And then when I left, I thought to myself, I don't really know what women think about their vaginas. What do I think about my own vagina? So I would just casually say to a friend, well, what do you think about your vagina? And every woman that I said it to said something more bizarre, funny, weird, incredible than the next. And that really began just my curiosity. I had no plans to write a play about vaginas. I was already a very, very way downtown political playwright, and a play about vaginas would have secured my status permanently. But then what happened is I listened to a woman who had had a very humiliating sexual experience as a young woman, and she had never had sex again. And I was destroyed. And I was like, wow. And I wrote a monologue that wasn't based on her story, but had the remnants of that idea, called The Flood. And when I performed it, everyone was like, you have to do this. And I was like, do what? And they were like, do this vagina thing. So that was really the beginning.
Were you, as you're writing this monologue, and it becomes this, play and becomes this production, this huge production, did you ever anticipate that it was going to be that big and the reaction to women was going to be that big?
No. I was in a little tiny theater way downtown in New York, and I was just hoping someone would let me do it without like shooting me or arresting me. It was more curiosity. It was more, I wanted to tell stories that had never been told before. And then what started to happen was every night women would line up after the show because they wanted to tell me their story. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. And at first I thought they'll be about sexual desire and there'll be about pleasure. But the majority of women were lining up to tell me how they'd been abused, how they'd been raped, how they'd been incested, how they'd been harassed, how they'd been, domestically beaten. And I thought, whoa. I knew there was violence in the world. I knew women were violated in their homes and on the streets and at work, but I had no idea the magnitude. I had no idea the epidemic proportion.
And to take in all these tales and stories must have been somewhat difficult for you. What did it do to you?
Well, it's a very good question. I think at the beginning I would just kind of turn listening and turn hearing women's stories into art, and I tried my best to say, okay, not that the monologues are literal interviews, because they're not. They're fictional pieces that I've created from my own imagination, based loosely on experiences. But I think, to be honest with you, over time, I think one of the reasons I got sick 4.5 years ago with very bad cancer was, to some degree, I had been through a lot of my own trauma as a child, because I was violated by my own father and then very brutalized by my father, and then that was compounded with listening to stories for 20 years that really kind of grew a tumor inside me. That trauma just kind of grew into something.
When were you ready to forgive him, your father, that is?
I think forgiveness is a journey. I think, I don't know that we ever go, you're forgiven, right? I think forgiveness has to do with you going through your own journey of rage, of disbelief, of sorrow, of hurt, of abandonment, and then where you really begin to come back into your body, re-inhabit the space that got violated so that you become full and alive to your own self. And now I feel with my father died quite a while ago, but I feel that I'm no longer his victim.
I don't know if you hear this enough, but we really envy, we women across the world envy the way you relate to violence against women and to our bodies. I don't forget hearing you in a clip saying you were separated from your body as a young girl. Who taught you to have such strong emotional will and intelligence?
You know, who knows where anything comes from, but I'll tell you something. For 20 years, I have traveled the planet with V-Day, the global movement, and I've met women in 60 countries on the front lines doing the everyday work of transforming their communities, whether it's Agnes Pareo in Narok, Kenya, standing up to end FGM, or Christine Schuler de Schrijver in Congo, building City of Joy and helping women turn their pain to power, or Zoya in Kabul, who just opened an amazing center where women who have been horribly abused are learning to be educated, or Abha and Kamla, or Monique Wilson in the Philippines, who bought the Vagina Monologues. These women are my inspirations. These women inspire me on an everyday basis to be stronger, believe that we can transform human existence and consciousness. And I think I have been very fortunate in my life. I have so much love around me because I'm in an incredible movement, an international movement of women who are joined in solidarity to transform and to end all forms of violence, economic violence, racial violence, corporate domination, the violence we're doing to the earth. The violence we're doing to transsexuals, the violence we're doing to gays, the violence we're doing to anyone who we don't celebrate their existence and their right to be exactly who they were born to be and choose to be. And I think to be united in that movement and to be joined in that movement gives me so much vitality and strength.